Howdy folks, HulkRx here, and welcome to Thoughts from the Inner Sphere, episode 53. And today we're going to be talking about another light mech for you mech jocks that like to move fast and harass somebody. We have the 30-ton Javelin. Not a bad little mech. I've used it on a lot of occasions because I kind of like its firepower for what it can do. Now the Javelin is a 30-ton mech. It's a 696, which is a pretty decent moving mech. Carries 10 heat sinks, which isn't a problem because usually it's the only time it's going to heat up is when it does jump jets and fires weapons. And it carries 64 points of armor, which is 4 tons, which is a kind of a drawback for this guy, which we can mitigate. And then for armament, we have 2 SRM6s, one in the right torso, one in the left torso, with 1 ton of ammo for each launcher in each torso, right next to the launchers, the SRM6 launchers. And it carries 2 jump jets in each leg and 2 in the center torso for getting around with that 6 movement. Now the Javelin. What do I like about it? Well, mostly because the jump jets, and it's a 696. It can move, it can displace pretty quickly, it can get over obstacles fairly decently, and does the role pretty decently of the anti-mech scout mech. You know, eyes and ears. Go out there, find the enemy, fixate him, and then if it's doing any type of spotting, you know, for follow-on forces, let's say you have a couple archers or something of that nature, or catapults where they have some alarm launchers and a lance following up, you know, you can use this guy as the eyes and ears. So you can use a spotting. Now, if you plan on using it in the anti-scouting mode, it works pretty decently, but its main drawback is that, you know, with the 2 launchers, eventually those things will run dry if you're doing a run and gun battle, or if you're playing a campaign and you're doing extended operations. This thing will have to find itself at some point resupplying. All right, if you're doing a campaign. Now, if you're just doing the drop down and throwing the dice on a table and you're doing a stand-up battle for an objective or something like that, and you're not worrying about long campaigns or anything, you're just playing to throw dice at each other and have fun, this mech doesn't really worry too much about ammo. Now, 15 turns, this thing's probably going to be dead before it ever runs out of ammo. And a lot of times with the limited amount of armor, this thing carries, what, 6? Or 8? Something like that. 8 points of armor in the right and left torso, so getting hit with anything like a PPC or AC-10, you're going to do crits potential. And on occasion, I've seen this mech get hit right in the ammo and kaboom, you know, it just becomes a crater. So the biggest thing with this mech, you're going to have to move it fast. Get into any type of obstacles, you know, like jump 6. Get into some terrain that will increase all your modifiers so that your enemy's not going to be looking at you too much. And a lot of times they have a tendency to overlook the scouts if they're looking at something bigger coming down the pipe, moving a little slower, and is a better target. And unless you put this mech into a circumstance where, well, you know, I get a chance shooting at this one guy at extreme range, or I have this guy that's a little closer and the odds are about the same, and maybe I'm going to gamble and try to take this little guy down. And that has a tendency to happen on occasion. But I like using this mech to kind of move through the corners, get into the flanks, and then, you know, you're using that terrain and cover and everything to try to mitigate anybody looking at you and firing at you. And then when mechs are beat up and they have some armor ripped off, you get in, this thing can jump or move pretty quickly, get into a flank where that open spot is and looking for that hole. And let me tell you, 2 SRM6s, and if both of them hit and you have that chance there of getting 6 hits, that's a lot of crit hunting. Just plain and simple. And there's been times when you get a heavy mech and then suddenly you roll with this thing and it flies in, hits with both SRMs, and you might get between 7 to 12 hits with those SRMs. And each one of those is a possible chance for a critical. Yeah. Crit hunting is always a good deal. And that's what I like doing. And just taking somebody down. If you can hit somebody in the ammo through crit hunting, you can take an assault down pretty quickly. Now, what variants are there? There's one variant that they call it the Fire Javelin. I think it's the 10F. And it carries like 4 medium lasers. Alright, so you downgraded both those SRM 6s. And it's like, what, 8 tons? And you put 4 medium lasers, 2 more heat sinks, and 2 more tons of armor on this thing. And that becomes a pretty decent skirmish mech for doing, specifically running around for anti-scout mech hunting. And yeah, it has a tendency to, as I say, you fire the 4 medium lasers, you're going to be 12, so that's 0. And your only heat is going to be from your movement. Now, if you jump, yeah, you're going to be going up on the heat scale pretty quickly. You do that a couple turns. Let's say you hit level 10, 12, and then your movement suddenly knocked down pretty quickly, and you're going to have to jump all the time and forego some of those firing. But with the F version, which I have it tendency to either or, it does, I more lean towards the F version because I'm a medium laser guy. I'm a big fan of the medium laser, especially if I'm running like my mercenary campaigns, which is kind of the whole thing is about, is running as a merc, is that I'm looking at long range operations where I don't have to worry about resupply, and the F version is something I really enjoy taking out of the field. And if you run into other scout mechs, those 4 medium lasers could really wreck face on a light mech. Especially if you put 2 shots into the same spot. That just leaves a big hole, usually in most light mechs. And if they're running something with any type of ammo, yeah, you can watch one of those guys go kaboom. Now, when it comes to making your own variants, there's really not much. I'm more inclined to go with the F version than really meddle with too much. But if you really want to meddle with changing it, like the N version, which is the standard book one, what I usually would do is downgrade both of the SRM 6s to SRM 4s, free up 1 ton each out of them, put another medium laser on, and add 1 ton of armor, so you go up to 80. And that little bit of extra armor has a tendency to help out, especially if you're doing anti-mech hunting. And that medium laser does a little bit better job of punching holes into light mechs than the SRMs, because the SRMs have a tendency to take a little bit longer. And if you do run a campaign and you run out of ammo, at least you got something that will shoot, other than just being a pure 100% scout without any weapons. But that's pretty much everything I would usually do when it would come to changing this mech. But like I said, I prefer the Fire Javelin, which is the F version. So if I have a choice, that's the version I will go with. That's a decent mech, just plain and simple, and it fits like right into my style playing when it comes to playing Battletech. Now, if you have anything else that you like about this mech that you like to use, or have you changes, let me know down below. And hopefully you can get into a game with this thing and hopefully use it in a good way where you're trying to be in the eyes and ears, doing the follow-in, tear off some armor off somebody, and then just dive in and just hit somebody with all those mediums, SRM6s. Now, another good thing with this mech is, I forgot, is city fighting. This is a good city fighting mech in the fact that you can jump over tall buildings with a single bound. Oh, that sounds like Superman. And get in behind somebody and then just pepper mechs and then dive out, go someplace else and take a turn, cool off a little bit and dive back in, kind of that type of deal. And getting in behind somebody and tearing them up. Plain and simple. And if you get let's say an assault, like a Atlas or something, you can dive behind them and fire those SRMs into them and just annoy them. That's very much all you're doing. And then kicking or do a couple punches. Because you have no weapons in your arms, you can do some severe amount of punching damage with this thing. And that's where it kind of excels at, is a brawler in a way, is that when everything's in the chest, you freed up those hands to grab stuff, run around, pick up objects. Let's say you got a scenario or something where you got to pick stuff up and run it off the board. This is a great mech for doing it. It's got fast, it's maneuverable. And then, if, like I said, you can jump behind an Atlas and deal a couple punches, and he's going to be going, oh boy, especially if he gets hit in the head. It's going to be really torqued off. But other than that, that's pretty much how I deal with this thing. I like the Javelin. I take it a lot in the campaigns I do, especially with the fire one. And just let me know how you work with it and how you enjoy it. Alright, this is Hell Craigs, and we'll see you on the next one. Talk to you later.